An Indo-Pacific charm offensive. US President Joe Biden is set to host the leaders of Australia, India and Japan in the coming hours. It will be the first in-person meeting of the Quad Alliance, widely seen as a counter to China. Top of the agenda, COVID-19 vaccines, global supply chains and climate change. Talks have already taken place ahead of the meeting. Some have already led to results, like a climate deal between India and Australia.
We agreed to go forward with a low emissions technology partnership, a partnership that will focus on hydrogen development, ultra low cost solar programs to support their energy transition.
Tough discussions on China are also expected. The Quad nations are concerned about Beijing's growing assertiveness, but they've distanced themselves from being labeled as an anti-China coalition. Beijing has denounced the alliance for promoting what it calls a Cold War mentality.
People want to point, well, why really are they doing this? Well, it's no doubt driven by the rhetoric and the diplomacy and the military modernization out of China. But it's not about that directly as much as standing up for what we believe to be a more inclusive, better type of order that isn't driven by one central Chinese Communist Party, with one man at the top for life.
Nick Harper joins us live for more. Nick, the alliance likely to pledge commitments to several key areas.
That's right, Steve. I mean, they have a huge range of topics that they will be discussing. As you mentioned, climate change, COVID-19, the vaccine diplomacy, infrastructure, potentially some projects to rival China's Belt and Road Initiative, cybersecurity, lots and lots of issues. And of course, yes, China is the elephant in the room. It's really the reason why these countries are banding together. But they're also looking for positive outcomes, ways that the four countries can work together, in particular in technology and economic terms, things that they can do to try and counter the rise of China. So we are expecting an announcement on the global supply chain initiative, particularly around the issue of semiconductors. Remember, the car industry in particular has really struggled around the world as a result of a shortage of those, with supply chains really hit by the pandemic. Also, some sort of telecommunications announcement around 5G, the deployment and diversification of that to help all four countries. And also a science and technology fellowship program that will allow 100 masters or doctoral students to come to the United States to work and study in some of the most prestigious universities. So certainly efforts from the four countries to work on the economy, to work on technology, to try and create initiatives that they feel will help going forward to counter the rise of China.
And Nick, the Quad is also now under scrutiny after fallout from the AUKUS Pact.
Yeah, that bombshell announcement a week ago, the UK and the US going to be supplying Australia with technology that will allow them to build nuclear-powered submarines. It's really created waves around the world. We saw anger from France, an ally of the United States, because that deal meant that another deal between Australia and France was scrapped as a result. And obviously China was angry as well. It feels that this is just another thing that the US is doing, like the Quad, that is anti-China. So it's been particularly critical, and it does create another target for China. So we will have this balancing act, in particular for the Biden administration, a balancing between the other Quad nations, Japan and India, who are not part of this AUKUS agreement. We know that President Biden over the next few hours will be having one-on-one bilateral meetings with the leaders of those two countries. But there's also a possibility that the four Quad countries will look at the possibility of broadening that AUKUS agreement. Biden has mentioned that there is a possibility for EU, NATO partners, even France itself, to play some sort of role in a broadening of the Quad or a broadening of the AUKUS agreement. So that's something else that we're watching out for as part of this balancing act that the US is now trying to do to unruffle those ruffled feathers as a result of the AUKUS agreement.
Yes, and thanks for getting us up to speed. Nick Harper speaking to us from the US Capitol, Washington, D.C.